Dr. Carlos, I know you are doing some really interesting things in your clinic, and you have your own understanding and approaches to the whole anti-aging field. So maybe you can share a little bit of what you see as some of the bigger challenges for the whole anti-aging effort. What is dragging us back the most severely?
Thank you again for having me, and I appreciate all your insight. You've been helpful as I've looked at some of the other regenerative therapies, so I appreciate that as well. I think that right off the bat, the biggest challenge we have is often just how we define aging, right? So we often talk about our chronological age, which is how many years we've kind of been on the earth, let's say, and then some people talk about biological aging, and that's also, getting a lot of attention recently, which is if I'm, let's say, 40, do I really reflect that biologically and physiologically, or am I perhaps, a decade older? And then there's some newer concepts that I'm sure, maybe some folks have heard of, which we talk about also, which, for example, inflammaging, right? So the concept that as we progress through time, we have this sort of low-grade chronic inflammation that's also now accelerating our aging process. So I think definitions are part of the kind of the challenge. So we often, with our clients, talk about those things, like this is how old you are, but then we really want to start trying to understand biologically, what does that look like? And the other piece too is even psychologically, right? We talk about psychological aging because as we get older, and as we increase our longevity, what's happening to the peers, the community around us? Are they keeping up with us or not? And, I'll give you a personal story. My grandfather lived to be 99, was very vibrant for a long time, but really by the end of his life, did not have a lot of his peers around him. So it's an interesting thing and an interesting dynamic when we talk about aging. And then the other piece in the United States, especially, and I think people know this, we start talking now about what is our lifespan versus our health span, right? So how long we are alive versus how long we're alive in really good health. And in the United States, there's a big gap there. So if we live on average till about 73, let's say, we spend almost 9 years of our life in less than stellar health. And so this also influences aging. And so for us, we really want to have frank conversations with our clients to talk about, and I like how you said it, is kind of like, how do we optimize your aging for a really a life that's full of vitality, grace, energy, et cetera. So that's for us the biggest driver when we talk about aging.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You're talking about this psychological aging. That's not talked about very much. I'm sure that plays a huge part into the physical aging.
It does. And it's interesting because one of the things that we talk about, all of us talk about, especially when we talk about primary care, we know cardiovascular disease and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. These are all things that are associated with aging as a general rule. That's the common cofactor for a lot of these things is as we get older, we tend to potentially have some of these illnesses. One of the things that has been really interesting that I've really just kind of started to get real passionate about is the concept of loneliness in aging, right? So the whole idea of psychosocial dynamics that influence aging. So loneliness as a cofactor or as a chronic disease and how that then influences both cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases, and just accelerates our aging process when we don't have community around us. And so that's also a big factor in why I think psychosocial aging is going to get some more attention, especially over the next, I think, couple of years or so.
Yeah, there may be some very interesting studies coming out correlating psychology and loneliness and aging process. I'll be very interested. As you know, I was a psychiatrist for 11 years, so always very interested in